I remember just like yesterday, the way blood soaked through her uniform. It was just a small cut on her arm, but it was enough to stop the whole kitchen that day. Not because of the injury, but because of what we saw when she rolled up her sleeve. Gold. A tiny mark. Burned into her skin like a brand. Not something most people would notice. But we all did. And from that moment, none of us looked at Amelia the same way again. My name is Nabila. I've worked in the Musa household in Maytamar, Abuja, for over 12 years. I was the cook. Still am. But this story, it's not about me. It's about Amelia. She came into our house 3 years ago. Slim, quiet, and always looking like she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. She wore second-hand slippers and always tied her wrapper tight, like she was hiding from the world. She didn't say much, but her hands? Fast like fire. You give her 1 hour, and the whole mansion would shine like glass. Madame Aishar didn't like her. From day one. Said she walked like a queen, not a maid. We all thought it was just jealousy. But now, I wonder if she knew something we didn't. The Musas were one of the richest families in Abuja. You've probably heard the name before, Al-Harji Musa, the cement king. Big man, quiet voice, heavy pocket. The house was like a palace. Marble floors, golden chandeliers, water fountain in the middle of the living room. Meanwhile, Amelia slept in the boys' quarters behind the main building. Small room, leaking roof, no fan. But she never complained. She would just come out every morning, wash her face with cold water from the bucket, and go straight to work. She didn't smile much. But when she did, it was the kind of smile that made you forget your pain. A smile that looked borrowed from a happier life. The way she spoke Hausa so clean, like she grew up in a palace. The way she arranged the dining table perfectly, without anyone teaching her. The way she handled Madame Aishar's Italian china without fear, like she had done it all her life. Then one day, she corrected Al-Harji's pronunciation of a French word. Nobody corrected Al-Harji. But she did. And she did it softly, with respect, like someone raised to speak to powerful people without fear. That's when I started to wonder, who was Amelia really? That night, after the dinner party, I found Amelia outside, scrubbing the steps like her life depended on it. Madame Aisha had shouted at her in front of everyone, called her too bold for a maid, told her to mind her place. Amelia didn't say anything. She just kept scrubbing. But when I sat beside her and handed her water, she whispered something I won't forget. Some places are hard to forget, even when you're forced to. She wasn't just talking about the house. She was talking about a life she left behind. One that somehow felt too big to stay hidden. One Friday, a tall man in a green kaftan came asking for a mirror. We all looked around. No one by that name lived there. Until Amelia froze. She came out slowly, her eyes wide. She looked like she had seen a ghost. The man greeted her with Yar Saki, meaning, daughter of the Amir. I will never forget that name. And from that moment, everything changed. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat with Amelia behind the kitchen. She told me her real name was Amira Donlardi, daughter of the late Amir of Zariyar. She was born into royalty, educated in England, meant to marry a prince. But her stepmother hated her. After her father died, everything changed. She was framed for theft, disgraced, and cast out of the palace. She ran to Abuja and changed her name. Started working as a maid, just to survive. And all this time, she had been hiding right in front of us. By Monday, everyone knew. The guards, the drivers, even the dogs seemed to walk differently around her. People started calling her Harjier, by mistake. Madame Aisha, of course, was furious. She told Al-Haji to sack her. Said Amelia was manipulating everyone. But Al-Haji did something strange. He invited Amelia to sit with them for dinner. That was the beginning of the war in the house. The man at the gate. His name was Farouk. He was Al-Haji's nephew. A quiet man who had just returned from Kano. Handsome, tall, and always respectful. Most girls in the house had tried to catch his eye. But it was Amelia he noticed. He said she reminded him of someone he once knew. He didn't care about the gossip. He saw her, not as a maid, but as someone broken, yet still standing. And Amelia? For the first time, I saw her smile like she meant it. One evening, as the rain poured, I watched from the kitchen window. Farouk brought Amelia a small flower from the garden. It was wet and falling apart, but she held it like gold. They didn't say much, just sat under the mango tree in the compound. That night, I realized something. Love doesn't need big words. Sometimes it only needs quiet places and eyes that see beyond what others don't. By the next week, the house was no longer the same. Half of the staff respected Amelia even more. They called her Haji or Amira, quietly. The other half stayed loyal to Madam Aishar, whispering that she was using charm to control Al-Harji and Farouk. Even food in the house became tense. People ate in silence. Every small movement from Amelia felt like a statement. And yet, she remained calm, doing her work, avoiding trouble. But trouble didn't avoid her. One afternoon, Madam Aishar shouted from her bedroom. She said money and documents were missing. Amelia was called first. Al-Harji didn't say anything, but the way he looked at her, like he wanted to believe she was innocent, made Madam even angrier. Then they found a letter in Amelia's drawer, written in French. It talked about revenge, about retaking a stolen throne. Amelia looked confused. "I didn't write that," she said. "This isn't even my handwriting." But nobody listened. Except one person. Farouk. Farouk stepped in. He showed handwriting samples from her daily records. They didn't match the letter. He asked questions nobody else had thought of, like who had access to the maid's quarters, and how the letter ended up in a locked drawer when Amelia lost her key last week. His calm voice made Al-Haji pause. By evening, everything had cooled. But something was clear. Farouk was now standing between Amelia and the world. And that was dangerous. Al-Harji called Amelia privately. He said he believed her. And then he offered her something unthinkable, to manage his household accounts. It was unheard of. A maid, managing the accounts of one of Abuja's richest men? People said he was going mad. But Al-Harji said he was tired of pretending not to see value in people because of where they slept. That day, Amelia moved from the servant quarters to the guest room. Madam Aisha refused to come down for dinner that night. The very next day, Amelia wore a soft wine hijab. It was simple, but clean. New. Farouk had taken her to a bookshop in Wusay. Nothing romantic. Just two people walking and talking. But when a photographer took a picture of them together, and it ended up online, it caused a small storm. Madam Aishar stormed into Al-Harji's study the next morning. "She's using your nephew to climb into our bloodline," she screamed. But Al-Harji only said one thing. "Maybe we need new bloodlines." Late one night, Amelia received a call. She froze when she saw the number. It was from someone in the palace. Not everyone had forgotten her. Her father's old advisor wanted to meet. Quietly. He said the truth about her exile was coming out. The stepmother who ruined her had fallen sick and confessed to lies. Amelia didn't speak after the call. She just stood there, shaking. After 3 years, her name was being cleaned. But did she still want the crown? The proposal. It wasn't grand. Farouk brought her groundnuts and suyar after Jumeirah prayers. They sat in the garden. No fancy speeches. He just said, "I know your past is royal. I'm not a prince. I'm just a man who sees you. The real you. If you'll let me, I want to walk with you." Amelia didn't answer at first. Then she looked at him and said, "I've never needed a prince. Just peace." 2 days later, the house buzzed. Somebody said Al-Harji had approved the union. That Amelia, the maid, was going to marry into the family. Madam Aishar fainted that morning. The drivers claimed they saw her crying into her gallery. Nobody believed it at first. But when the tailor came to take Amelia's measurements, the truth became louder than the lies. Just when things were settling, Madam Aishar made her final move. She brought in a police officer. Said Amelia had stolen documents long ago, back in Zariyar. Amelia was nearly arrested in front of the compound. It was only when Farouk showed the palace's official letter, clearing Amelia's name, that the officers backed down. That night, Al-Harji told Madame Aishar to leave the house for a while. Peace had a price, but it had finally arrived. The nikah was small. Just close family and a few staff who had become like siblings. Amelia wore a light peach dress. No gold, no diamonds. Just dignity. Farouk smiled the whole time like he had found something precious. I watched it all from the back row, holding my tears. She wasn't just a maid anymore. She was someone's wife. She was someone's peace. She had gone from hiding in the shadows to becoming the light. Few weeks after that, a letter came with a royal seal. It was an invitation from the new Emir of Zariyar. He wanted to honor Amelia and clear her name officially at a public gathering. Farouk looked nervous. "Do you want to go back there?" he asked. Amelia took a long time before answering. "I want to go back, but not to stay. I need to close the door properly." We all stood at the gate as Amelia and Farouk drove off. She wore a simple white abaya and her face was calm, but I knew her heart was not. Zariyar hadn't changed much. The palace walls still stood tall. The people still whispered. But this time, they whispered with respect. The Emir welcomed her with a warm hug. The court announced her as Amiruddin Lodi, the wronged daughter, now restored. Some cried. Some knelt. Some simply stared in silence. Amelia walked into the small guest room where her stepmother now stayed. Frail. Weak. Eyes sunken. "I know what I did," the woman said. "And I know you can never forget." Amelia sat beside her. "I've already forgotten. That's the only way I can live." It wasn't forgiveness in words. It was mercy in silence. After the ceremony, the Emir made an announcement. He wanted Amelia to return to Zariyar, not as royalty, but as a member of the palace council. A symbol of strength and second chances. People cheered. The drums played. But Amelia shook her head. "Thank you, but I already have a life in Abuja." The Emir nodded. He respected her decision. And in that moment, Amelia walked out of the palace, not as a servant or a princess, but a woman who had chosen her own path. Their return back to Abuja felt different. She wasn't the same girl who came to the city with a fake name and broken shoes. Now, her photo was in newspapers. Her story had gone viral. People called her the real Cinderella of the North. But Amelia didn't let it get to her head. She went back to the same compound, sat with the same house staff, ate tuwo with her fingers. Fame had visited her, but never stayed. Marriage, they say, is not a destination. It's a journey. Farouk had his moments. He was kind, but sometimes quiet for too long. He didn't always understand Amelia's nightmares or her silence. Amelia tried to adjust too. Being a wife wasn't the same as being a maid or a daughter of royalty. One day, after a small argument, she asked him, "If I was just a maid, would you still have loved me?" He answered without looking up, "That's when I started loving you." The test was positive. Amelia sat on the bathroom floor and cried quietly, not from fear, but from the shock of being trusted with a new life. When she told Farouk, he froze. Then he hugged her tightly, his forehead resting against hers. "We're going to raise a child in love. No secrets. No shame. Just truth." That night, we cooked fried rice and chicken for no reason. It was a quiet celebration, but the best kind. One morning, while Amelia rested in her second trimester, a stranger came to the gate. He said his name was Bazhi, a journalist. He had followed her story and wanted to do a documentary. From Maid to Matron, that was his working title. Farouk didn't like the idea. He said they needed privacy. But Amelia, she looked at the camera and said, "If my story can help even one girl believe she's not finished, then let's tell it." The shoot took weeks. He followed her around the house, at the clinic, even when she went to the market. Amelia insisted on filming the old quarters where she used to sleep. She sat on the small metal bed and said, "I was more myself in this room than I ever was in the palace." The documentary aired across the country. It was raw, real. And for the first time, people didn't just see a viral story, they saw a human being. The baby came on a Friday morning. A beautiful girl with soft eyes and a loud cry. Her name? Rayayana, the Gate of Paradise. The naming ceremony was filled with laughter, jollof rice, and prayers. Even Al-Haji cried quietly when he held her. As Amelia looked around at the smiling faces, staff, family, neighbors, she whispered to me, "I never thought my life would begin in a kitchen and end up here." I told her, "It hasn't ended, Hajier. You're just getting started." Rayayana was not like other babies. She rarely cried. She stared a lot, watching everyone, almost like she understood. Amelia said, "This child came with old eyes." Farouk doted on her, but he was awkward with diapers. Still, every evening, he'd hold her and hum old Hayusa folk songs. Amelia smiled more now, but I could tell she also carried a quiet fear. "What if she grows up and doesn't know how far we came?" she asked. I told her, "Then tell her. Every year. One chapter at a time." After the documentary, strangers began writing letters. Girls from Jaws. Maids from Kano. Young women who had been abandoned, hurt, or forgotten. Amelia read every single letter. Some made her cry. That's when the idea came, the Amir Foundation. A place where young women could learn, heal, and grow. Free of charge. Al-Haji gave her a property in Kubwa. Bazhi offered media help. Farouk helped with paperwork. And in 3 months, the doors opened. Not everyone clapped. Some called Amelia a fraud. Said she was using pity to get fame. Others said she was setting a bad example, teaching housemaids to dream too high. Even one of the staff said, "Shay she worn become politician now?" Amelia didn't fight back. She just posted a video of the girls sewing clothes and laughing. "We're not chasing status. We're chasing peace." And peace answered. The girls started coming. They came in slowly. A girl with tribal marks who never looked anyone in the eye. Another with a limp from an old injury. One girl came with only a nylon bag and a broken phone. Amelia taught them everything she knew: cleaning, budgeting, reading. But most importantly, she taught them how to believe they still mattered. Sometimes I saw her stare at them and whisper, "That used to be me." Just as things seemed to be going well, a new article came out. It claimed Amelia had stolen her husband from his upper-class fiancé. A woman Farouk was allegedly supposed to marry before she came. It wasn't true, but it hurt. The writer hinted at spiritual manipulation and power games. Farouk was furious. He wanted to sue. But Amelia only said, "If I start fighting every lie, I'll never live in peace. Let them speak. I'll keep working." At this point, Al-Haji fell sick. At first, it was small, just tiredness and missed appointments. Then suddenly, it was serious. Amelia sat by his bed every evening, reading Quran and wiping his forehead. In his last week, he whispered to her, "You gave this house a second life. Don't let it die with me." He passed quietly on a Friday morning, and for the first time in many years, the entire household, servants, guests, relatives, cried together. After the funeral, everyone looked to Amelia. She wasn't the oldest. She wasn't even blood. But she was the calmest. She handled the visitors. She organized the food. She settled the small fights. Farouk said, "You're not just my wife. You're the spine of this house now." Even Madam Aishar, now living separately, sent a note. "I didn't see you coming. But now I see you." Motherhood wasn't easy. Rayayana was now crawling, always trying to touch things, always giggling, always falling. Amelia once panicked when she fell from the small cushion and cried. She held her for an hour, even after the baby stopped crying. "I'm afraid she'll have to fight like I did," she told me. "No," I said. "She'll fight less, because you already fought for her." They visited Farouk's home in Katsina. His grandmother, Marmar Lami, held Amelia's hand and said, "You're not a city wife. You're a woman of strength. This land will remember you." The entire village welcomed her. Some girls came just to see the famous Maid. But Amelia never wore pride. She fetched water like everyone else. She peeled yam under the tree like it was home. She was proof that dignity isn't about where you live, but how you live. One night, Amelia dreamt of her mother. In the dream, they sat under a mango tree. Her mother said, "You've done well, my daughter. But don't stop." When she woke, tears rolled down her face. That day, she expanded the foundation. She added a new room, Mama's Corner, for older women who had been forgotten. She said, "The world saved me. Now I must save others." And she meant it. Something strange started happening with Rayayana. It started with small things. Rayayana would sleep too much. Then, too little. One day, she had a seizure. Amelia froze. Farouk carried the baby into the car like she was made of glass. I followed them to the hospital. The doctors ran tests. They said, "It might be neurological. We need to observe her." Amelia didn't speak. Not even one word. She just stared out the window. We waited for hours. The nurses brought tea. Amelia didn't drink. She kept whispering something to herself. "She's strong. She's strong." Farouk held her hand. But it was cold. When the doctor came back, he said Rayayana had something manageable, but it would require medication, therapy, and time. Amelia exhaled slowly. That kind of relief that hurts your chest. "We'll do whatever it takes," she said. To expand therapy for other children like Rayayana, Amelia launched a fundraiser. She spoke on radio, in mosques, at community halls. People responded. Some gave 500 Nigerian nairas. Some gave 5 million Nigerian nairas. But then one man stood up at a public event and asked, "Why should we trust you? You used to clean toilets." The whole room went quiet. Amelia looked at him and said, "Yes. And I cleaned them well. That's why I know how to build something clean." The room stood up and clapped. Farouk was proud, but the pressure got to him. He missed a few work deadlines. He withdrew. One night, they fought. "I'm tired of being the husband of the girl with the story," he shouted. Amelia didn't argue. She just said, "Then don't be. Be the man I married. That's all I need." Later that night, he came into the baby's room and held Rayayana. He whispered, "I'm sorry." To her. To Amelia. To himself. Amelia was nominated for a National Women's Award. We all watched on TV as they announced her name. She wore a simple Ankara dress with a matching scarf, nothing fancy. Her speech was short. "This award is for every girl who thinks her life ended in someone else's house." It didn't. It just started. The crowd stood. And somewhere in the back, an old housekeeper from her first job wiped her eyes. After the ceremony, a woman approached her backstage. She was in her 50s. Well-dressed. Wealthy. "I once fired a girl like you," she said. "She stole meat from my pot. But maybe she just needed help." Amelia smiled gently. Sometimes, we think we're correcting people, but we're just punishing their hunger. The woman nodded slowly. "Thank you," she whispered, "for making me remember." After that event, a fake story broke online. Someone posted edited photos of Amelia receiving money from politicians. They accused her of corruption. People started doubting her again. The foundation's donations dropped. Amelia didn't cry this time. She called a press conference and showed the real receipts, her bank records, and even past audio messages. "Dignity is not loud," she said, "but it shows up when you need it." The lies faded. Her truth stayed. It happened one evening. We were all eating outside, under the mango tree. Rayayana stood, wobbled, and took 3 steps. Then 5. Then she walked straight to Amelia and fell into her arms. We all clapped and shouted. Amelia looked up and said, "She didn't walk early. But she walked well. That's enough." And we knew she wasn't just talking about the baby. The palace sent a letter one day. The Amir wanted Amelia to come speak at a royal education conference. A full room of chiefs, leaders, and women in power. It was the same hall she once stood in as a confused teenager. Now, she stood with confidence. She said, "My mother didn't die so I could keep quiet. She died so I could be heard." There was no applause. Just a long, stunned silence. Then tears. One morning, Farouk made pap and eggs. Amelia sat quietly, sipping slowly. Then she smiled. I'm pregnant again. Farouk laughed like a child. This time, I'll be ready from day one. Rayana clapped, even though she didn't understand. Amelia touched her stomach and whispered, let this child come into a story already being written with love. And so the next chapter began. Amelia began humming again. It was the same lullaby her mother used to sing. She sang it while cooking, cleaning, driving to the foundation. Even Farouk caught himself humming it at work. I like the peace it brings, he said. Amelia replied, it's not a song. It's a memory stitched into sound. It reminded her that no matter how far she had come, she hadn't forgotten who she was. One of the girls at the foundation, Amina, showed promise. Bright, bold, a little stubborn. She reminded Amelia of her younger self, before the scars. So she trained her closely, gave her small leadership tasks. One day, she let her run a workshop alone. Afterwards, Amina cried. I never knew I could be trusted. Amelia hugged her. Trust grows where pain used to live. Water it. One quiet Thursday, Madame Aisha walked into the foundation. Amelia looked up and froze. So did everyone else. Madame Aisha walked slowly, like someone unsure if she belonged. I just wanted to see what you built, she said. Amelia nodded. You're welcome here. They sat under a dogo yarrow, neem tree and talked. No accusations. No bitterness. When Madame Aisha left, she said, you turned pain into something beautiful. I respect that. The second baby was a boy. Strong lungs. Wide eyes. They named him Amir, meaning prince. At the naming ceremony, old maids, new mothers, and even former enemies came. Everyone brought something: rice, fabric, cash. One woman whispered, this isn't just a naming. It's a thanksgiving. And she was right. Because this child came into a world already prepared to welcome him with dignity. Amelia was invited to a national education committee in Abuja. This time, not as a guest, but as a member. When she walked into the room filled with governors, professors, and CEOs, someone asked, are you the secretary? She smiled and took her seat at the head of the table. No, I'm here to speak, not serve. And they listened. Every word. One evening, Amelia found an old diary from her Maid days. Pages filled with fears, hunger, and dreams written in broken English. She read it alone in her room, eyes wet. Then she burned it. Not out of shame, but freedom. That girl survived, she said. But this woman is living. The foundation opened a second branch in Sulejar. This time, it had a tech hub, a daycare, and even rooms for emergency shelter. At the housewarming, Farouk stood beside her and said, you didn't just marry me. You married your purpose. And for the first time, Amelia stood in front of a large crowd and laughed. Not a small laugh. A full, free one. Rayana asked her mother a question one evening. Mummy, were you always rich? Amelia paused. No, baby. I was born with nothing. But I found everything. Rayana blinked. So I can find everything too? Yes, Amelia said. But don't look outside. Look inside. The sun was setting behind the hills of Abuja. Amelia stood on the balcony, baby Emil in her arms, Rayana leaning on her leg. She watched the orange sky melt into purple. So much had changed. Yet deep inside, she was still the girl who once cleaned tiles and whispered prayers in dark kitchens. But now, she was whole. Not because she escaped pain, but because she gave it meaning. A journalist asked Amelia one last question for a magazine profile. What would you call this journey? She smiled softly. From Maid to Matrimony. But not because I got a husband. Because I got myself back. And that's where her story ends, or maybe begins again. With love. With legacy. And with a life she built from scratch. One clean room, one honest word, one small miracle at a time. Thank you for walking through Amelia's journey with us. Her strength, her silence, her rise. Truly a story that stays in the heart. And we hope it stays in your heart too. Kindly subscribe to the Echoes of Old for more interesting stories like this one. Like this video if you find it interesting. comment and tell us what you learned from this story. We would love to hear from you. Also help us share to friends and family. Help us reach more people. Thank you.